the Atari 2600 Plus. What is this monstrosity of modern gaming, and should you buy one? We're going to talk about it right now. Alright guys, so if you're tuning into this, then you're aware of the new Atari 2600 Plus. This was unveiled earlier today, so we thought we would have a couple comments of what we think about this console and should you buy one. Let's go over some details. Alright, first of all, this is a emulation driven console, which means you can put your game cartridges inside, but it's not got the original hardware that's actually going to run it. It's emulated. Is there a problem with that? Not for me. For some purists out there, it may be. As long as the games work correctly and the timing is correct, that's all that matters to me. But what this thing really is a console that you can use to play your 2600 and 7800 games with an HDMI out to a modern TV and be able to do game capture with that HDMI cable easily. I say easily because there are ways out there that you can do game capture on the older consoles, but there's converters and different things you have to use to do that. This would be much better. And I'm sure that the overall quality of that video and sound is going to be much better with the HDMI than what it originally was. Having said that, let's take a step back and take a look at what the 2600 was, and what we want to see with this. Now, I've played a number of 2600 different consoles, 7800, different games. I've restored these, sold them, and I like the 2600. I think for what it was, it kind of revolutionized what we know as gaming today. Yeah, there were some other systems at the time that may have been better, may have been worse, but it's really the one that pushed everyone forward as far as a cartridge-based game console instead of just a computer. To me, the 2600 is a game that I played at some friends' houses as a kid, and I had some limited exposure to different games. Okay, so what is Atari offering with this new console? So they're touting that this thing can, again, hook directly up to a TV via the HDMI cable. It's got a LED light in the front whenever you turn the game on with the logo. I think that's a neat touch. It's got two controller ports just like the original. And supposedly you can use the original joysticks and paddle controllers on this. Now, one selling point that I feel this console has is the ability to use your original controllers. That's the original joystick or paddle controllers on this. Also, Atari is going to give you a CX40 joystick within the box with the console. And they also have the CX30 paddles that you can purchase from them as well. I think that's great, and that's a key here because on a lot of emulation systems that you play, whether it's Atari, Nintendo, it doesn't matter. If you don't have the original controller, a lot of times things are off. And especially when we talk about like paddle controller games and things, it's just not a good way to replicate that unless you have one of those types of controllers. So I think that's definitely an adder. The fact that you can run this to an HDMI TV, you can do a game capture, you can put in any 2600 or 7800 game cartridge. Now, there are a couple games they've got listed on their website that won't play, but for the most part, you're covered. I think there was only a handful of them that won't work. And I don't think anybody's going to worry too much about those. Okay, so let's talk about what's included with this system. First off, we've got the Atari 2600 Plus console, the CX40 joystick, a 10-in-1 game cartridge. You've got your HDMI cable, you've got your USB-C power adapter cable, and then any kind of packaging that's with it. Now, I do think that they should have added a paddle controller in there with it, even if it was, a $10 or $15 ad or whatever, just because there's a lot of Atari games. You've got your Pong and all that stuff that's going to use those, and to me, they should have had that as an option. But they do have them for sale so that you can pick them up if needed. Pre-order availability. As per Atari's website, you can order this now, and they should be ready to ship by November this year. How accurate that is, I'd say it's pretty close. I think they're trying to get geared up for the holiday season, and my guess is they've probably already got a number of these things lined up. They're just getting more in for inventory right now. As far as the 10-in-1 game cartridge, the games included are Adventure, Combat, Dodge 'em, Haunted House, Maze Craze, Missile Command, Real Sports, Surround, Video Pinball, and Yar's Revenge. Now, are these games great? There's some of the good ones in there. You know, everyone has their own opinion of what's great, what's not. Obviously, they're going to put on the console the games that they have licensing for. Makes sense. But the great thing about this is you can put whatever cartridge you want into it. There's also cartridges out there that you can put ROMs on to have all the games on them. Let's talk about the price. It's currently priced at $129.99. What do I think about that price? Well, I've bought, restored, and sold a lot of 2600 consoles and Sears Telegames consoles. It doesn't matter if it's a 4-switch, a light 6er, or a heavy 6er. These things will usually get around $100 and up after I clean them, fix them, and sell them. Now, why would I compare the original one to this one? Well, there's a couple reasons. Yeah, you can go find these at yard sales and things for not that much money, but you almost always have to replace some type of capacitor in it. Not everybody knows how to do that. You have to do some kind of cleaning, work. You have to do something to these. Just they're so old that things are starting to fall apart on them. Now, it's usually not major work, but you have to have some soldering skills and different things, unless you just buy one already fixed. And then we get back, you're going to be spending about the same amount of money. So why would you want this one instead of buying one of those older ones? Well, you can play not only the 2600 games, but you can also play the 7800 games. That's a big seller there because there's a lot of games on both consoles that people like, and in this case, you can play both of them. Plus, you've got that HDMI out that the original doesn't have. So you're going to have upgraded video, audio, and the ability to do a game capture. All right, you guys, so we just did a quick run through of some of the different things about this console according to what Atari has supplied to us as far as their news release goes. And now I want to give you some of my personal thoughts of what I believe you should take into consideration on this console and whether or not, maybe it would be right for you to purchase. All right, first off, the price. I touched on this a little bit. I think that $129.99, considering you're getting a controller, it's the HDMI connectivity and everything, I think it's worth it. It's not worth it for everybody. The Atari is not for everybody. A lot of the younger generation, they want their Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, nothing wrong with that. And even some of the younger generation may be getting into the 16-bit or 8-bit consoles. Not a lot, but somewhat. But to go back to the 2600 games, there's not a lot of people that's into it. And those are great games, but some of them, because of the limited capability of the system, you really have to use your imagination on. You need to know what you're doing. And I think this system, again, for what it's priced, is worth it. When you take into consideration, you can hook this directly up to a modern TV. You can do easily game capture, whatever you need to, whatever game you're playing. If you're doing this on YouTube or whatever, you can use your game capture device on this, Elgato or what have you. Also, there's the fact that you can play all your 2600 and 7800 games on this. Now, I say all, there's a list on the website that you can see on Atari's site of the games, but I would say it's like 99% of them that you can play. That's pretty good. And again, there's these multi-carts that you can buy, and you can just drop not a multi-cart, it's like a EverDrive, similar to that, and you can drop a SD card onto it with all your ROMs and play them, if that's what you want to do. But it would be good because then you can play all the 2600, 7800 games on the original controllers, and that's a plus for me, anyways. The fact that Atari is offering new joysticks and paddles to go with this is good. I wish they would have had wireless versions. Unfortunately, these aren't. They are wired, but hey, it is what it is. I don't know on there if they put how long the cables are. I didn't see that. I guess we'll have to wait and see how long the actual cables are. Unless you can go in there and find or ask them, I'm sure they would tell you, but I'm not sure how long those cables are. But hopefully, they would be long enough to where you can move back from the TV, especially with modern TVs. Another thing is the design of the console. You know, the 2600 is kind of a staple in everybody's mind of Atari, the way the joystick is. Obviously, the joystick is a reproduction, but the console itself looks almost identical to an original one. There are some differences there. He said it's 80% of the original size, which means to me it's probably going to be about the size of a Sega Genesis, would be my guess, which isn't bad. It's not too big, not too small. And obviously, they had to make it look original. They had to have enough room to put the cartridge, to have the switches and everything. And so I think styling and everything, spot on. The fact that the logo in the front lights up, I think that's great. It's just another little added touch that catches your eye. And overall, I think this looks great. Now, until you actually play it, who knows? Might be a bomb. I don't know. But I personally am very interested in this, and I'm curious to see how it's going to move forward. Now, a couple of things that they don't state in there. You know, they're saying that it supports 7,800 games, but it doesn't say if it'll work with the 7,800 controllers. Will it? I don't know. And when I say controllers, if you're familiar with the 7800, they had a couple variations. They had a joystick style where you could turn the knob similar to a paddle, but then you could move it around as well, like the modern joystick that they just came out with for the Atari VCS. Atari also had a controller more similar to the Nintendo or the Master System, where you would have the D-pad, it was kind of like a D-pad, on the left, and you'd have a couple buttons on the right. So it doesn't say on there if you can use those controllers on the system or not. They should really put that on there, and maybe that's something that they will release at a later date as far as the information goes. But I think if you're going to be trying to play those 7,800 games, you need to at least have the ability to be able to use those controllers. So that's one thing that I'm still not 100% sure about. But for me, the ability for us to play the games, do game capture, and enjoy them on the modern TV is great. It's worth $129. Is this worth it for you? I don't know. You'll have to take everything into consideration and decide that for yourselves. But until next time, thanks for tuning in, and keep gaming.